I'm trying something different by standing up a little bit, trying to get my movement going. But yeah. So when it comes to Donald Trump, he woke up a numb country, but Joe Biden faces an even higher bar. Now Biden is desiring to be the anti-Trump and everything, but it's potentially harming the nation the most. Um, so like, there's an argument to be made that this country never got over the assassination of John F. Kennedy, who was murdered who was murdered 2 years into office. The optimism and idealism seen in their country and the culture in the early '60s died when Kennedy did. Nothing illustrates that more than Kennedy's national challenge to be the first country to reach the moon. We did this in his name with pride, and 60 years later, after his death, millions of people are convinced that it was staged and shot on a soundstage in Hollywood. Now, mind you, with a strong enough telescope, you can see the landers that we left on the moon, but that is lost on a culture today, whose national hubris of Kennedy's Camelot has disintegrated into a turgid stench of misogyny, racism, sexism, and fear. Yeah, which is what the Republicans want us to fear. They want us to fear all the shit. And things are looking a little better since Donald Trump got drummed out of town ahead of the prosecutors who have already indicted him, and those who appear poised to do so in the near future. Now, Joe Biden, while not returning the country to Camelot, has at least taken us out of the gutter where the jaded morons like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Kevin McCarthy, and Lauren Boebert pimp themselves out to the NRA, and anybody else who can feather their foul nest with wads of sweaty cash. Now, there is no greater example of the lunacy of the Trump administration versus the sanity of Biden than in how the two have dealt with the ongoing problem of illegal immigration on the southern border. Trump called out the troops and stationed them on the border to harden and secure points of entry, which was known as the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, and it removed the military from regular civil law enforcement in order for the troops to be issued in their fashion, or to be used in their fashion. The president and squatter have to ask for a congressional waiver. So when Trump made his move, a lot of reporters, including the roll call White House correspondent John Bennett, he asked Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley if the president or squatter would ask for the waiver. Is it a rule or something? He responded. When we informed him it was a law, he told us that Trump was the chief executive and that we had to explain that's not how it works. We talked a few more minutes, and Gidley said that he'd get back to us about the Hakuna Matata thing. And Bennett and other people stared at each other before Bennett asked, "Did he just quote The Lion King?" And yes, indeed, he did. Now, contrast that with Biden's plan. This week, Biden announced 1,500 troops would be stationed along the border in a support role, but not directly involved in law enforcement. Now, when I was asked about Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre and National Security Spokesperson John Kirby about the Posse Comitatus Act, both of them not only knew what the act was, but why it wasn't necessary to request a waiver because the military wasn't directly involved in enforcing this law. Now, Trump had no idea how the government worked. Biden and his crew does. That's the difference between the two. Now, nonetheless, I sincerely want to thank Trump for his contribution as a squatter. I can't really thank him for anything. And you see, like many of us, we had grown numb hearing about Kennedy's assassination. Like, for me, I wasn't alive then, but, people that were alive back then grew numb. Or, in the case, people grew up numb. The corruption of Nixon, Reagan, both Bushes, like the father and son, and actually you could say one Bush, and as Molly Irvin said, one shrub, Bill Clinton and even Barack Obama had left us numb. Obama used the Espionage Act to go after whistleblowers. Clinton told me that oral sex wasn't sex. Reagan, Nixon, and Bush drilled into me the inadequacies and inequities of the supply side economics, while also pounding our head with misogyny, racism, greed, fear, adultery, and fascism. Now, it's far from Camelot, but we grew up thinking not only were politicians irretrievably stupid and corrupt, but that they were a standing subversion to the ideals of our Constitution. And still, I just didn't think I could get angry with our government anymore, and I thought it had worn me out. But then along comes Trump. Millions of people who thought they couldn't affect change and had no energy for the struggle woke up. And there's the real woke army. Donald Trump made all that possible. So thank you, pathetic Donald. You gave us hope and woke us up. I'm no longer numb to the ravages of misogyny, racism, greed, adultery, and fascism that you instoked. Now I didn't grow up in the 70s, but back then I'm pretty sure there was hope that people figured out. When people clung to it during the Carter years, only to have it ripped asunder by supply side economics and Ronald Reagan and his friends and the evangelicals. And this is why I wish to express, not where I do not have gratitude to Trump. He is fucking foolish, and he has had the exact opposite effect on the country that he's tried to make sure. Sure, millions of idiots follow him, but the vast majority of the people in this country sees him for exactly what the fuck he is, a fucking cancer that must be exercised and needs to be dumped. At the same time, I want to express my disappointment in Joe Biden for not parading a better example. Now, Saturday night, before the White House Correspondents' Annual Dinner, that happened a couple weeks ago, Joe Biden gave us his Type 5 stand-up routine that brought laughs as he screwed himself, Rupert Murdoch, and Don Lemon, and he gave us a great line about a certain member of Congress. If you find yourself disoriented or confused, you're either drunk or Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, Biden started out with a serious note and took time to recognize how tenuous and important the First Amendment is to our nation. The free press is a pillar, and maybe the pillar of a free society and not the enemy. It's great words, but between the idea and the reality, it falls the shadow. The writer once said, Biden's defense of the First Amendment rings hollow in my ears. He said on his campaign trail that he punished the killer of Jamal Khashoggi, and he is not. His administration continues to press charges against Julian Assange that was brought during the Trump era, and that prosecution is routinely condemned by most journalists, many world leaders, and anyone with a conscience. Now, on Wednesday, Reporters Without Borders released its latest international press rankings. The United States, 45, has fallen 3 places. The index questionnaires U.S. respondents were negative about the environment for journalists, especially the legal framework at the local level, and the widespread violence despite the Biden administration's goodwill. The murder of 2 journalists, the Las Vegas Review-Journal's Jeff German in September of 2022, and the Spectrum News 13 Dylan Lyons in February of 2023, it had a negative impact on the country's ranking, the report noted. Now, meanwhile, Biden does himself little favors to support the press. He avoids the press with the determination of a Jesuit monk. He seeks little public interaction that it isn't both controlled and relatively brief. His disdain for public interaction was given away in a photograph last week of him from a rare press conference in the Rose Garden. He was seen clutching a handout with a picture of the reporter that he has to call along with a copy of the question the reporter wants to ask. He got ahead of time, and that's a political and journalistic sin. The presidential press conferences are like a pop quizzes for presidents or a squatter. They shouldn't cheat. And for a president or a squatter who says his age is of no concern and for us to judge him accordingly, this is not evidence working in his favor. Do not mistake this as an endorsement for Donald Trump, because I hate Donald Trump, so I'm not endorsing Donald. And I really don't care for Biden much either. But the best I can say about him is that I'm thankful that he woke people up to his larceny, and his grave threat against the ideals of our nation. He called us the enemy of the people when we are the people. In 2020, those people spoke up. Donald Trump is a fucking massive failure. Now, Biden's manipulation of the press is as reprehensible as it has been successful. Reporters have fallen into a trap with Biden. They wish to curry favor and get called upon by an administration that uses access like bait on a hook. And there's very little to go around. Starving fish have been known to jump at empty hooks, and the press corps is nearly at that point. It's a masterful manipulation, far better than Trump could provide with his limited cognitive functions, both by himself and his staff, and Biden's staff is far better, and they are ultimately more effective than Trump was. Now, if Biden is serious about the American public judging him on his ability to serve another term, then he has to be more available to us. Part of the job requires a public inspection on a regular basis. Now, I have no doubt that Biden can fulfill the minimum requirements with little problem. If Biden or Trump can't handle the press, even if he doesn't necessarily respect the press, then how can we believe that he can handle congressional leaders, world leaders, or other aspects of the job that comes with being a president or a squatter? Now, of course, part of his revulsion to public inspection is because of the example of his predecessor, or as Trump is apparently referred to by Biden, the one who should not be named. Trump's shit stain is wide, but his actions should give us all hope. Yet it's this desire by Biden to be the anti-Trump and everything that's potentially harming the nation the most. Now, Biden seems far more cogent in the time I've seen him than Trump ever seemed, even for the briefest of moments at the White House. Now, we haven't heard Biden yell at his chief of staff, slam doors, screech like a banshee, threaten reporters, insult others, bay at the moon, throw food, soil the carpets, or act anywhere near as abusive and destructive as Trump had. If Trump had scooted his ass across the carpet like a dog with worms were growing and spitting, I would not have been fucking surprised. Biden, on the other hand, has been a complete professional gentleman, but yet the results speak for themselves. Trump likes to beat you over the head with the mallet, but Biden and his staff are armed with stilettos and packs, and they come at you smiling while pretending to be your friend, and you kind of know, kind of like Henry Hill described it in Goodfellas at the end of the movie. The problem boils down to this. Donald Trump woke up the country to what Biden describes as our inflection point. Now, Biden remained hopeful, which everybody should be. Now, those alive who remember better times long for a new Camelot. Biden has taken large strides, but his hollow defense of the First Amendment is no defense at all, and that leaves him open for withering criticism from the right and growing concern from the middle and the Democratic side. Now, in the end, the fear is that Biden, while marginally better than Trump, will be no better at returning us to a sense of national idealism than Trump, and it could produce worse results if people's hopes are again crushed. Now, the wind-up to the 2024 election is thus going to begin and on its way. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so you'll know when a new video comes out. And if you want, you can also leave a comment, let me know what you think. And also, if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just a little as a few bucks a video or a month, your donation can help go a long way. And thanks for listening.